Welcome to Us Crazy Christians, where we uncover Christian myths and Bible misinterpretations with common sense Christianity. I'm your host, William E. Smith, and today we're going to talk about the big red dog. Stick around. When I was very young, probably around the ages of 8 or 9 years old, my brother and I would take our time and try to feed all the stray dogs in the neighborhood. As a matter of fact, we did it so often the stray dogs would like hover around our houses like around the time we got out of school, thinking, hey, they probably gonna feed us today. And so one day we were feeding the dogs. It was winter time. We were feeding all these dogs, maybe like 4 or 5 dogs on our porch, and we didn't have money to get dog food, so we were giving them leftovers, bones from chicken mom made, or just leftover food that was in the refrigerator, bread, stuff like that. And while we were feeding these dogs, all of a sudden, a big red dog. Now, I had never seen a red dog before this, and as a matter of fact, I've never seen a red dog since that dog. But a big red dog, kind of looked like a German Shepherd, came up onto the porch and started eating frantically all the food. And all the other dogs, 4 or 5 dogs, some just as big as this dog, bagged up and just cowered under this dog while this dog went crazy, just eating up all the food and just almost bullying all the rest of the dogs, and they would just sit there watching like. And so my brother and I went and got some more food, some more bread and stuff, and tried to feed it to the other dogs, you know, separately from where this big red dog was, and they would still bag up, and the big red dog would run over and he would just eat up all the food and devour it like frantically, like he was starving. Then all the dogs ate kind of wild because they were hungry. You could see they were skinny dogs, you could see their bones and stuff like that. But this dog was just bullying all the rest, like just taking the food, and the other dogs just cowered down and bagged up and allowed this dog to do this. And so we trying to shoo this big dog away, like, man, you ate up all the food, stop, get him away. And he wouldn't leave. So my brother and I had a good idea. So we said, we know what to do. We went in the house, we got some bread, we put pepper on the bread, a bunch of pepper and hot sauce and stuff like that, and went and bought it up and threw it outside. And again, just like before, the big red dog devoured the food, and the other dogs just bagged up, knowing they were hungry, but they just bagged up and allowed this dog to devour the food. And he just ate it up like he didn't care about the house. So I was looking up, like, you got any more? I was like, what? And so we like, what? You know, okay, all right, you bully. And we went in the house and got more hot sauce and way more pepper and salt and put it all in it and stuff like that, and threw it out the dog. And again, the dog devoured the food, and we were like, man. So we stopped. But a couple weeks later, maybe a week and a half, something like that. This is a long, long time ago. But one of my neighbors said, hey, you know that big red dog? She had some puppies across the street in the abandoned house under the steps. And I said, what? So that was a girl. It wasn't a boy. I'm thinking it's a boy, this big male dog, and it was a female. And so we go over across the street, and it's winter, it's snow outside now, it's freezing cold, and we go up and we look under the porch and we see the big red dog with about 4 or 5 little puppies. And you could tell they were just born maybe days, and one of the puppies was dead. And my little 8 or 9-year-old mind couldn't help but believe that maybe I killed the dog with all the hot sauce and the pepper I gave the mom. And so my brother and I, we just took care of the big red dog and the puppies, went and fed her every day. It was right across the street in an abandoned house under the stairs, and it was freezing cold. We just fed her every day and gave her food and water and stuff like that, and she was very sweet and grateful. And eventually, I think the Humane Society picked her up or something some of the neighbors had said, because she was gone, her and her puppies, which was a good thing. I brought up the story of the big red dog to point out something, that there may be people in our lives that we know in our past, in our current situations, and the people we'll run into in the future who do things that from our vantage point seems like they are the villain, like they are the bad guy, like they are doing something they have no business doing. And that could very well be true. But it is also possible that they are doing things that are completely logical to them, and it makes complete sense to them. I remember, this just came to me just now, I'm gonna mention this real quick. There was a brother I knew, a good friend of mine. He would call me up and complaining that his wife wasn't making love to him. She wasn't giving him any sex, and he was complaining, and I'm friends with both of them, so he's complaining, like hoping that I'll talk some sense into her and blah, blah, blah. And so I'm getting all this information from him, and I'm feeling bad, like, hey, what's going on, girl? Like, you know, what you doing, blah, blah, blah. Your husband is handsome, all these girls hitting on him, and why you know. And so in my mind, she's the bad guy, she's the villain. And in her husband's mind, she's the villain, she's holding out on her husband. But then you talk to her and you find out that she walked into a room and saw her husband sleeping with another woman. And every time he gets ready to touch her, the vision of what she saw floods back into her mind. She didn't divorce him, she didn't leave him, she stayed with him, she loved him, she wanted to work through it. But every time she began to try to be intimate with him, she would have flashbacks of her walking in the room and seeing him with another woman. So again, if you only see one side of things, it makes total sense how somebody could be a villain, can be a bad guy, just like with the big red dog. But sometimes there are things that we just don't see. Sometimes there's filters or blinders on our eyes that prohibit us from seeing the truth or the full story. My brother and I had a hatred for bullies. We were bullied all the time. And so we automatically looked at this big red dog like a bully, like all the other bullies who had been bullying us. And it was our duty to rescue and protect these other dogs who didn't need any protection. They were simply bowing to this female, to this mother, allowing her to eat, to take care of her babies. They knew something we didn't know. Because of our bully filter, we saw this situation totally different than it actually was. How many times? And I could blame that on me being 8 or 9 years old, but I've done that many other times in my life, in my teenage years, in my young adult years, in my older years. Now I get better as I've learned those lessons, as I've made those mistakes. And I'm telling you this story, hoping that I can help you not to repeat the same mistakes I made. It's better, it's safer to just lean towards love. You can't go wrong. If I had to just lean towards love with the big red dog, if the big red dog ever had any animosity towards me, which she didn't seem like she did, it was temporary, it was short-lived, but my guilt lasted for nearly 30 years. I could just recall it and think about it and be almost brought to tears of regret of what I did to the big red dog and her puppies. I was very young and not mature enough to fully grasp the lesson to be learned from the big red dog, but it did plant a seed in me. And over time, it began to grow, to learn that there are two sides to every story, to lean towards love and not be so judgmental. And I just planted that same seed in you. When you set your heart and mind to set somebody straight, to get somebody told, to put them in their place, to correct them harshly, you're at risk of harming them, of wounding them greater than they may have already been wounded. And not only could you wound them, but you could wound yourself. Again, what I did to the big red dog may have affected her negatively. And if it did, it was probably temporary. Now that I'm older, I'm sure that my hot sauce didn't kill the baby, or didn't kill the puppy. But the pain and the guilt that I felt haunted me for many, many years after the big red dog was dead and gone. It's simply safer to lean towards love. Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. This is the greatest commandment. You cannot go wrong if you lean. If you want to see more from us crazy Christians, hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. If you're a returning guest and haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? It's free. Plus, hit the notifications bell to be notified every time we post a new video. I hope this was a blessing to you. Thanks for watching us crazy Christians. Until next time, be blessed.